And many thanks for joining us here on Good Morning Uganda. It is a Monday, a cold one, if you're to look at it from the Kampala city. It is going to be a very, very cold Monday morning. Not only that, it does seem to be another hectic one for those who will be hitting the Kampala traffic jam by around 7 o'clock. Because tell you what, as we were moving to come here, you get to realize that there were very few people on the roads simply because of the rain. But that aside, it is the 15th of April and we are here to ensure that we inspire you as a viewer and also to put you in context with information, news and all around details happening across the world. And tell you what, over the weekend as we were preparing for this week, news, of course, circulating all over different media platforms showing tension between Iran and Israel. I will tell you, many people are watching closely and lots of information coming in here and there from various camps, from Iran, from Israel, of course, Israel also threatening as well as Iran. So you get to realize that the Middle East tension is back and running, and it does show that there are many possibilities that it might not come to an end just yet. But well, besides that, we do have lots of news and information coming your way here. So sit back and relax because we got you covered. And here we are. And I'm in studio with the team, Robert Chirabonyonyi Ntono, as well as Chantal Oliver Kaninda. Olive Monica Najuma is with us in the realm of the spirit, not physically though, but we will be expecting her back very soon with the team. And she's already watching wherever she is as well. And for you, our dear viewers, sit back and let's give you news and information as it's supposed to be coming your way. Robert, good morning.
It's a fair morning, I must say. Not as good as it should be, though, but it is a Monday, and we just want to welcome back everybody from the weekend. Now, Iran, Israel, one of the things, Joram, I must tell you, is if it wasn't the holy month of Ramadan, Iran would have attacked as early as soon. But because they were in the month of Ramadan, and one of their leaders came out and said, you know, brothers, us Muslims, in this time of Ramadan, we do not kill. So this is why we see that Israel was prepared. USA also comes into the picture. Remember, Joe Biden was having holidays at one of his beaches and he was told, be on standby one. So by the time Iran attacked, it was something that Israel knew it was coming. That's why their various defense mechanisms were already placed in the skies and all that, to at least minimize the effect of what would be happening. But I said it's a fair morning, reason being that I hit a very big pothole when I was coming.
Oh.
And that somehow disorganized me. But also, I was like, about a few months, we saw His Excellency direct the Special Forces Brigade, Engineering Brigade, to work on the roads in Kampala. About 64 roads were earmarked, and they did some work. But what is annoying is that it's like work came to a standstill. And when I was listening sometime to the director of engineering, KCCH, he said that the challenge is they have a very small budget. They looked at about 30 billion for road maintenance in Kampala, but were given almost not even half of that. Now the SFC were looking at about 3 billion, but they got, the spokesperson says, we got almost a third of that. And you expect work to be done, so there's very little money. And yet the work is so much that they have to do. But also the big question, some roads that they have tried to do some repairs. Also again in sorry state. I'll give a road like Martin Road, Old Kampala, when you go there. It was worked upon, but now you find it very hard.
And well, of course, when you move around industrial area, you get to realize that most of the roads are still in sober state. There are lots of potholes there. And on a day like this one, where it has actually rained very early in the morning, you will realize that it's going to be a difficult way to move in. But also, over the weekend, you get to realize that businessman Matthew Kadyamunyu was also released after completing a sentence for the 2016 shooting and of death of of human rights activist, that is Akena. And when you look at his release, that is Matthew Kanyamunyu, many of the activists were not happy with the fact that he was released. Gerald, just a comment on that before I get to Chantal.
Well, first, Matthew Kanyamunyu was released after serving a sentence. Matthew Kanyamunyu went through the proper, and I must say proper, judicial process of our country. He was on remand for about 11 months. Then he was sentenced. Matthew Kanyamunyu showed a remorse, and I think this is what many Ugandans are not understanding, that a sentence, the judge depends on so many things too. One, much as he showed and he pleaded guilty, Matthew Kanyamunyu rushed Akena to a hospital facility. Second, during this process, he showed remorse by even going through the traditional justice of the people of that ground known as Matoput. So he was given a lenient sentence depending on these categories that I've mentioned. One, they'll look at intention. You have malice at forethought to commit a felony or to commit that offense. The fact is he didn't have malice at forethought because it wasn't something he planned to kill, like those that killed the Andiga clan leader. Then second, were you remorseful? Yes, you were remorseful, even wanted to make ends meet and go for Matoput. So the sentencing is not just what a layman thinks, that the judge just wakes up and says, life imprisonment. There are terms that they followed, he served his sentence, and now he's out. Same as Chandi Jamwa. He also came out, I was watching a video of him some time back. But someone would say now that one got a presidential pardon. But law is complicated. That's what we must say. So you must understand the nitty-gritties of why they arrive at a particular sentence.
All right. And now let's check on the lady on the team this morning, Chantal Olive Akandinda. Good morning, Chantal.
Good morning, Sanko. How are you? It must be colder in the Arsenal camp.
It is very cold. It is very cold in the Arsenal camp, and that has been one of... you really caught me off guard with that.
I know.
How was your weekend?
Well, I had a restful weekend. It was a really good one. And with the rains also during the weekend, it was indeed a good one. And though the news that, you know, has been circulating through the weekend has been news to look out for, and bring up a few questions as well when you're talking about Matthew Kanyamunyu. Robert, I agree with what you've said. However, please do note there was a stretch in between where we did not know whether he was remorseful or not. By the time he got to go to the clan leaders and the clan heads to show remorse and everything, we had gone through a little bit of back and forth on whether he's the one who had murdered him or not. So maybe that could be some of the sentiments that have led to some people feel like he shouldn't have left. But then again, they should have protested the sentence back then instead of protesting the fact that he has been released after serving the sentence that he was that he was given by the jury. So at the end of the day, I think people need to understand that this is not the time to go out now and start expressing concern over his release. And then when we talk about Iran and Israel, it's been a long time coming, that is one, but then Israel has been ready because most of the missiles that were sent were countered, and it turns out Iran lost more than Israel. Because according to Israel, only a 7-year-old was hit and just one military base. And then Iran seemed to have lost 7 Iranian military officials, and of those, there are also 2 generals. So I guess they were not as prepared, or they didn't think Israel was as prepared as they thought.
Well, now that aside, we've gathered for you some news both from the local and international scene, but we kick it off with the local scene.
And on the local scene, we begin with President Yoweri Museveni, who has cautioned people frustrating a Chak Sugar Factory project in Amur district, that those frustrating the project are opposing industrialization and are enemies of Uganda and Africa. Museveni was at a field visit to assess the state of the multi-billion shilling sugar project implementation under a public-private partnership. President Museveni said any person who is against urbanization through industrialization, is an enemy of Uganda. He was touring a royal investment holding company in Pasilo village, Atiak sub-county, Amo district. President Museveni lashed at people disagreeing over the land being used by Atiak Sugar Factory for being opportunists with the aim of dividing the people of Acholi. Atiak Sugar Factory is owned by businessman Dr. Amina Harris Mego. The project assessment visit was also attended by ministers, members of parliament, and local leaders. The first commercial sugar production is slated in mid-2025 and will be a growth stimuli to the sub-region. President Museveni promised to reward the family of the late John Omanya for giving 25,000 acres of land to Dr. Amina to set up the factory. And moving on, President Museveni has advised religious leaders and followers to emulate Jesus Christ, who besides performing spiritual miracles, he also worked with his father Joseph. The message was contained in a speech read by him by the Vice President, retired Major Jessica Alupo during Busoga Diocese at St. Mary's Day at St. James Church in Jinja City. Mr. Museveni commended religious leaders in Busoga for partnering with government to eliminate poverty by increasing household income. He said poverty in Uganda rises from the fact that 38% of the households are still engaged in subsistence farming. President Museveni contributed 50 million in cash towards the construction of St. Henry's House. The celebration began with a church service led by retired Reverend Paul Nayemyenye, the Bishop of Busoga Diocese. Still on local news, the Archbishop of Kampala, His Grace Paul Semogere, has urged the daughters of St. Paul's to use the media to bring hope to the wounded world. He said the world is overwhelmed by social media, which has become a tool of disinformation. He was presiding over the final profession of Sir Florence Lamero among the daughters of St. Paul at the King's Church in Kampala. It was a moment of joy at Christ the King's Church, Kampala, as Sir Florence marched to commit herself for life in evangelical ministry. During the homily, the Archbishop Semogere praised the daughters of St. Paul of taking the word of God to remote areas that Christ meant. The Superior General, Sister Anne Kasiza, in her letter, reminded Sister Florence that when there are things in us that prevent us from being completely of God, we have to be like the lungs that ensure they release bad breath and bring in new oxygen. The Provincial Superior, Sister Rose Muweni Mwawa, urged Sister Florence to preserve herself for God and ensure that she inspires others. And finally, from the local scene, the Julius Nyerere Leadership Center has unveiled a new curriculum as part of celebrating 102 years of Julius Nyerere as at Makerere University. The Swahili-based curriculum book will see students enlightened about Nyerere's legacy and ideology. The Julius Nyerere Leadership Center at Makerere University has marked 102 years of former Tanzanian President Mwalimu Julius Nyerere. The Professor Tassis Kabwejere hailed Nyerere as a revolutionary leader who contributed to the liberation of Uganda and Africa to fight colonialists. During the celebrations, Swahili curriculum book was launched to facilitate students learn about Mwalimu's legacy. The Tanzanian ambassador to Uganda, Major General Pauli Kisesa Simuli, challenged the youth to take lead in championing Pan-Africanism and liberation of the mind. Every year, Makerere University honors Nyerere as one of its outstanding alumni, first black vice chancellor when Makerere University was still part of the East African University.
And well, of course, that aside from our local scene, we now check in to see what is making headlines from the international scene.
Well, internationally, the White House has warned Israel that the U.S. will not participate in any retaliatory strikes on Iran, senior administration officials have said. Over 300 drones and missiles were fired at Israel overnight, which Iran said was in response to a 1st April strike on its consulate in Syria. Almost all weapons were shot down by Israel, U.S. and allied forces before they reached their targets. Officials say Joe Biden urged Israel to consider its response carefully. Speaking to reporters on Sunday, a senior administration office said that Mr. Biden told the Israeli Prime Minister to think very carefully and strategically about how his forces replied to the unprecedented action, the first direct attack by Iran on the country. Away from that, at least 33 people have been killed over 3 days of heavy rains and flash flooding in Afghanistan, according to the government's disaster management department. From Friday onwards, because of the rains, there were flash floods which caused high human and financial losses, department spokesman Janan Sayek said on Sunday. The primary information shows that unfortunately in the floods, 33 people were martyred and 27 people got injured. Most casualties were from roof collapses as some 600 houses were damaged and destroyed. In addition, 200 livestock have perished, nearly 600 kilometers of road have been destroyed, and 800 hectares of agricultural land has flooded away, the spokesman added. 20 of the nation's 34 provinces were lashed by the heavy rains, which followed an unusually dry winter season that has parched terrain and forced farmers to delay planting. Western Farah, Herat, Southern Zabul, and Kandahar are among the provinces that suffered the most damage, Sayek said. And lastly, on the international scene, one of Nigeria's most popular celebrities, a transgender woman known as Bobrisky, has been sentenced to 6 months in jail for spraying Naira notes at a film premiere. The judge said Bobrisky must serve her sentence in a male prison. She has not been given the option of paying a fine. Instead, local media reports. Throwing money in the air is a sign of appreciation commonly done at Nigerian weddings and celebrations. This is technically an offense as the notes then fall onto the ground where they can be trodden on. Rights groups say LGBTQ people often face harassment and discrimination in Nigeria. In February, a cisgender heterosexual actress Oluwadarasimi Omoseyin received a similar sentence for the same offense. During the trial, Bobrisky said she hadn't been aware of the ban. Until now, it has been rare for people to be prosecuted for it. And that does it for news on the international scene.
And well, away from the international scene, now we check back with what is making headlines here in regards to print media with our press review. Now we start off with the new vision in Uganda, which is highlighting what 70% increase in Buganda NRA membership means. NUP FDC parties contest 18 million figure. Then also 6 killed in Mukono village as dozens have been arrested. Then PS Salisaga, public service head, intervenes. Then UNBS warns prioritize safety, not profit in food business. Then also tin refinery launched by President Museveni. Now away from that, the Daily Monitor is highlighting 70% of Ugandans survive on borrowing, according to a study. Then also soldiers to get huge pay rise. There's a detailed pay rise for all the soldiers depending on their different ranks. Then Akamwesi proprietor remanded over forgery. Then also Dr. Nakasi using artificial intelligence to transform healthcare. That is in the Healthy Living. Read about it. You can find more of the same in the Daily Monitor. Now, crossing the borders to Kenya, the Daily Nation is highlighting politics of term limits. Too young to retire. The renewed calls for President William Ruto to rule for more than 10 years, spelled out in the Constitution, have reignited the politics of term limits in the country, with proponents arguing that 2 terms are not enough for a president to make any meaningful change. But opponents say such reckless talk should never be entertained in Kenya. Then also, strong shilling fuels drop in pump prices. What Middle East escalation means for Kenya. Then there are no sacred cows in fertilizer scandal probe, says William Ruto. Now football, Arsenal and Liverpool drop precious points as title race hots up. Now lastly, from our press review, we head to Tanzania with the Citizen newspaper. They are highlighting reproductive concussion when a woman's body has many stakeholders. Then international conflict, Israel on alert as Iran warns against retaliation. Then why further dollar relief is on the way, still the Citizen newspaper. Then government mulls more dams to control flooding as 58 die in 2 weeks, as Tanzanians share what it means to feature on the Forbes list. Well, that is what you can definitely get from our press review this morning. I don't know why Chirabo is actually excited.
You know, Sonko, the Nigerian story, a transgender woman sent to serve 6 months in prison sentence in a male cell, in a male prison.
By birth, do I say it? Or he or she is male, so definitely.
By birth he was male.
Yeah, and please do note that in Nigeria, they do not tolerate LGBTQ. So I think it's even a chance for him or her to suffer a bit.
For him, for her.
That's why, okay, after changing it's she, but by natural birth it was a he.
Now, the drama is with African prisons, it might be a life-changing experience.
For the man.
For the man.
6 months in prison for
the man, for the woman.
Whatever the case is, the inmates, I'm telling you, she's going to go through a very trying moment.
Yeah, the 6 months are really going to be long.
Yeah, very trying moment, because you won't explain to them why you're a woman born a man.
Wow. And then after the break, we return with our newsreel. This time around, we shall be talking vaccines in the country. A bigger concern, by the way. But before that, we have our inspirational song of the day coming in from Gabi Ntante, Cheza for Yesu.
Live from UPC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
And many thanks for joining us here on Good Morning Uganda. It is a Monday, a cold one, if you're to look at it from the Kampala city. It is going to be a very, very cold Monday morning. Not only that, it does seem to be another hectic one for those who will be hitting the Kampala traffic jam by around 7 o'clock. Because tell you what, as we were moving to come here, you get to realize that there were very few people on the roads simply because of the rain. But that aside, it is the 15th of April and we are here to ensure that we inspire you as a viewer and also to put you in context with information, news and all around details happening across the world. And tell you what, over the weekend as we were preparing for this week, news, of course, circulating all over different media platforms showing tension between Iran and Israel. I will tell you, many people are watching closely and lots of information coming in here and there from various camps, from Iran, from Israel, of course, Israel also threatening as well as Iran. So you get to realize that the Middle East tension is back and running, and it does show that there are many possibilities that it might not come to an end just yet. But well, besides that, we do have lots of news and information coming your way here. So sit back and relax because we got you covered. And here we are. And I'm in studio with the team, Robert Chirabonyonyi Ntono, as well as Chantal Oliver Kaninda. Olive Monica Najuma is with us in the realm of the spirit, not physically though, but we will be expecting her back very soon with the team. And she's already watching wherever she is as well. And for you, our dear viewers, sit back and let's give you news and information as it's supposed to be coming your way. Robert, good morning.
It's a fair morning, I must say. Not as good as it should be, though, but it is a Monday, and we just want to welcome back everybody from the weekend. Now, Iran, Israel, one of the things, Joram, I must tell you, is if it wasn't the holy month of Ramadan, Iran would have attacked as early as soon. But because they were in the month of Ramadan, and one of their leaders came out and said, you know, brothers, us Muslims, in this time of Ramadan, we do not kill. So this is why we see that Israel was prepared. USA also comes into the picture. Remember, Joe Biden was having holidays at one of his beaches and he was told, be on standby one. So by the time Iran attacked, it was something that Israel knew it was coming. That's why their various defense mechanisms were already placed in the skies and all that, to at least minimize the effect of what would be happening. But I said it's a fair morning, reason being that I hit a very big pothole when I was coming.
Oh.
And that somehow disorganized me. But also, I was like, about a few months, we saw His Excellency direct the Special Forces Brigade, Engineering Brigade, to work on the roads in Kampala. About 64 roads were earmarked, and they did some work. But what is annoying is that it's like work came to a standstill. And when I was listening sometime to the director of engineering, KCCH, he said that the challenge is they have a very small budget. They looked at about 30 billion for road maintenance in Kampala, but were given almost not even half of that. Now the SFC were looking at about 3 billion, but they got, their spokesperson says, we got almost a third of that. And you expect work to be done, so there's very little money. And yet the work is so much that they have to do.
660. Tuko pamoja?
Live from UPC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
Well, it's good to have you back here on Good Morning Uganda, and it's time for our newsreel. And this time around, our newsreel is entirely going to be talking matters COVID vaccines. But not only that, we shall expound our discussion and our conversation on two other vaccination drives by the country, or that have actually been done by the Ugandan government. And according to the news that is circulating, it does reveal that government is seeking funds to destroy the expired COVID vaccines. Now, when you hear something like that, the mind will definitely rush to, why do we have expired vaccines? That is a bigger question, because there was a lot of time when there was a time during the 2-year lockdown series where we were actually looking for these vaccines and we could not easily find them. Now, when you look at also the situation here, the National Medical Stores, that is NMS, has a staggering 400 billion lost stock of out-of-demand COVID-19 vaccines that need to be disposed of. And for this, it needs funds to dispose these vaccines. And the legislators on the Health Committee, led by their chairperson, Dr. Francis Ayume, say that by December 2023, 10 million COVID-19 vaccines had expired in NMS stores. Now, that is a bigger question. And of course, to you, our dear viewer, we would request you to share your thoughts or your views on the government intending to destroy these COVID vaccines or to destroy these expired COVID-19 vaccines. Do you think we did so wrong to acquire so many of these vaccines, or it is the right thing to do since everyone was vaccinated? I want to believe so. But I'm not going to be discussing this alone. I have Robert Chirabo Nyonyitodo with me here in Studio A, as Chantal Oliver Kanenda is in Studio B, as we try to break down this for you, our dear viewer. I'll go right to Robert Chirabo Nyonyitodo. Robert, when you look at this issue of the vaccines, first, why are we in such a situation that needs us to destroy vaccines that we had acquired for a purpose?
Thank you so much, Joram, and of course our viewer. Now, we must understand that destroying vaccines, destroying drugs is not a new thing for Uganda. And not only for Uganda, and quite a number of countries. Because once these expire, they are a danger. They are poisonous, that is one thing. They are dangerous, and why usually they make sure that they destroy them. In third world countries, if you don't destroy them and keep them, they might somehow find themselves on the shelves of some pharmacies, some drug shops, and people taking them, or being vaccinated using those very drugs. So, once they are expired, the only thing you have to do is destroy them. And destroying drugs is not like when we hear that government seeks funds. If you find out how much money is needed to destroy these drugs, because you must have an incinerator, there are specific terms and conditions that are required. The process is very organized, very expensive, so that you do not have first the negative impact on the environment because you're destroying these drugs, but also the safety of people surrounding that area. Now, that said, why are we here? First, we must understand that if there is anything that challenged the world in the 21st century, it was COVID-19. It is a disease that came out very new, that never surfaced on the planet, and yet it needed quick solutions because great economies of this world had gone to their knees. If you remember very well, our viewer, you would look at big airports when planes are parked. Countries had locked their economies. The lockdown was not only for Uganda. Countries had lost people in huge numbers. Talk about countries like Italy. They lost so very many people. Now, lockdown was not going to be an everlasting solution. The solution was to come up with a vaccine so that you boost people's immunity. That because you must understand this, that you being vaccinated for a particular disease does not mean you don't acquire that disease. So, being vaccinated yellow fever, being vaccinated any disease you mention, will not prevent the disease from attacking you. But when the disease attacks you, your body is prepared. It has built the fighting mechanism for that particular disease. So when it comes, just like we talked about Israel and Iran, that these were very prepared and their impact was less. So this is what vaccination does. That you will acquire COVID, but you're not going to fall and all get weak, just like measles. We've seen children who are vaccinated, they are playing around, but they have the red eyes, they have some rash over their body, but those are not vaccinated die. So the only solution to COVID-19 by then was a vaccine. But the challenge was this vaccine hadn't gone through all the procedures that vaccines go through for it to be administered. Because it was developed very fast, and World Health Organization just said, we can, at least the basic requirement for vaccine to qualify, we've achieved. Let's go. Now, at one time, we didn't have vaccines in this country because the great nations wanted them for their people, and our president was harsh on them. But we came to a point when they had vaccinated their population, because the first bunches we had were donations. Then we later went for a loan in the World Bank, purchased the Johnson & Johnson that we are talking about that is going to be destroyed. And now it comes at a time when there was so much misinformation and doubt of COVID-19. So the uptake of COVID-19 vaccine was very minimal. If you remember, even government had to come up with some means of forcing people. Remember the teachers? No vaccine, no job. I don't know if you remember that. No
Even
vaccine, no job. Yes, some workplaces you have to be vaccinated. And this also made people wonder, why are we being forced, if it is our life, to be vaccinated? But also the situation, the sudden change of the world now saying we can do without COVID-19 as a requirement for specific things. For example, traveling, some countries you no longer need the COVID-19 vaccination certificate or card. So, and over time, because a number of people were vaccinated globally, we must say either we developed natural immunity, because when you're studying a science of viruses, they will tell you that when a virus stays for a long time, for some time, there is a way people may develop natural immunity. That is why the flu we are talking about today, there's some years where the very flu killed a number of people. A lot of people are dying of influenza and flu. But today, people will get flu and they will go for lemon, honey, and survive.
All right. And you got to realize as well that COVID-19 vaccines on low demand, and it is pretty much observatory. This has actually led to the expiry of some of the stock. But again, one would wonder, is it because we asked for more than we could, go for as a country? Because I want to believe as the country is planning for its citizens, as you're acquiring these vaccines, at least you have an estimation of how many Ugandans are in the country. I do understand we last did census in 2014, but having these millions of vaccines expiring pretty much puts us in a bad place as a country in regards to how we take on these vaccines, or how we pay for or seek for these vaccines, because I want to believe not all of them were bought, because we received some as grants, if that is the right word.
Donation.
Donations, rather. So let me get to Chantal Olive. When you look at it from this way, what did we do wrong that we need to change as a country? Because acquiring these vaccines, whether through donations or buying them, and then we see them expiring, is it something that the country really became a little bit relaxed? Is there some bit of laxity in how we got these vaccines and how we kept them?
When you ask what went wrong, we would have to go back down to how much information was disseminated to enable Ugandans not go against the vaccine, because the major reason being stated for the expiry of these vaccines is the fact that there was low uptake of the vaccines, and of course at a later point people felt like we don't need the vaccine anymore. So that led to the vaccines that had been procured to sit in the different facilities and leading to what? To them expiring. So it goes back down to when the wrong information was being circulated about the vaccines, what was done to counter that? Were the measures being put in place then enough to enable Ugandans take on the vaccination program properly? Maybe not, and I think that is where the foundation of our problem is at the moment, that we did not counter the bad publicity that was around the vaccines properly to enable us utilize these vaccines. But also, how do you go ahead and procure all these vaccines on a loan and then now bring the vaccines to a country where there is negative attitude towards the vaccines? And like I said, the foundation of the problem, that is what we should have done. Ensure that as you're procuring these vaccines, the people you're procuring them for are receptive. Because by 2021, we had already seen a lot of noise and a lot of negativity towards the vaccination process. And now it goes to say we last had the last procurement in 2021 after obtaining a loan from the World Bank.
True.
What does that mean? It means that we still went ahead to procure instead of first working on our homes to make sure that if you're going to buy, for example, rice in your house, do people in your house love rice anyway?
Because $5.6 billion of COVID-19 vaccines from a $180 million US loan from the World Bank. That is approximately 684 billion Ugandan shillings that was put into these vaccines. And now 5.6 of those doses, according to an audit report in January, were expired. Terrible. We have an issue of, having Ugandans to go for vaccination. We've seen this just recently. We had a conversation of the same in regards to yellow fever mass vaccination, where we have the elites and, of course, the Ugandans in the diaspora who are using social media, to decampaign these vaccination drives by the government. Is this one of the reasons as to why we are seeing these expired vaccines of COVID?
Well, Sonko, first we must understand that health is a priority. And just a quick one, when it comes to COVID-19, these vaccines were very scarce in the beginning. Getting them was very hard. At one time, we even had money, but couldn't get the vaccines. So, and one thing we must understand is that we thought COVID was here for longer than it did stay. If you remember, we were looking at, I remember Dr. Jane Ruther Chen saying we need to have at least 75% of the population vaccinated. That if we have that vaccinated, then we may have we may be able to handle the rest of the population in case these people are sick. We went for special groups, because in the planning, we thought that COVID was going to stay for some time, and for us, the only way we could be safe, of course not ruling out the SOPs, was boosting our immune system. So government never wanted to be caught off guard, assuming that if this disease is to stay, let's embrace more on the campaign of vaccination so that we have a huge population vaccinated. You've given a good example of the yellow fever, where we are seeing the turn-up that even government has to have an extension. We had an extension to ensure that those that have not come for this vaccination, please do. Remember, after this vaccination, getting that yellow fever jab is going to be $150. That's about 500,000 if you miss this campaign, this mass vaccination. Now, one, knowledge is power. And the challenge we are having is that there is so much misinformation going around, yet there is little to counter the misinformation. That is the biggest challenge, that there is so much, because a person is not coming to hospital because they are sick and therefore they need treatment. No. A person feels I have nothing wrong with me. Why should I go for that small injection to get that vaccine? Because we'll go to hospitals and they have never questioned how good are the drugs being administered. Because they have gone there and they need to be cured, to be treated. But here comes a time, someone sees they are normal and they are being told, you're going to be vaccinated, and they don't have prior information. I took my family for vaccination at one of these centers for yellow fever. And literally there was no sensitization, no information. These young girls, and I think some gentlemen who were there, all they would do, they had some card, your name, your age, this. Then a person sits there. Even the people who are coming from being vaccinated had little information.
Okay.
If someone stopped them and asked them, you've been vaccinated, but where have you been vaccinated? Anyway, I may have to travel and this thing may be expensive. I may want to take my children to Dubai for a holiday, and you see, it will be hard for me to get. So I've said, let me take them. But no one, very few, would explain to you that, you see, Uganda is one of those countries that have been earmarked as potential countries to have yellow fever outbreak. So I'm getting myself prepared that in case that happens, my immune system has built the ability to fight yellow fever. It was all about, I want to travel. I may like to travel. At a time, this must be a must. Just like you find that many people today labor to get national IDs, not because they understand why, but they'll tell you, I'll need this to get a passport, I'll need this. So people go for vaccination, not because they have understood why they should be vaccinated, but they are going actually to be vaccinated for the wrong reasons. And now, the people with misinformation, most of social media. Recently, I saw one of the VIPs. I don't know when this clip came out. And she was on social media being interviewed by someone, moreover, a doctor.
You know, that's why I want to also
And
bring
she
in
was
Chantal
saying-
here. Chantal, when you look at our anti-vaxxers, or what you could say, people who are against vaccinations
Right.
globally, have they been a huge contribution to where we are as a country in regards to Ugandans shunning away from vaccines? And what can government do, to put an end to such? Because every vaccine that comes in the country, or every mass vaccination that is actually launched by the government, the anti-vaxxers are always against the campaign, preaching the evil of the vaccines. And I think this is the reason as to why we're having vaccines expiring. But what can we do for such a group of people who continue to decampaign the mass vaccinations?
Government needs to earn more trust in its people, to a point that if they woke up and there was a campaign, the Ugandans or the people would trust the word of the government instead of an international anti-vaxxer who is coming out to say, listen, you cannot take that jab, and please do not. Some of these vaccines, not like the COVID-19 vaccines, were procured from the countries that themselves had anti-vaxxers. So how do you expect a Ugandan to trust a drug that is coming from a country where even the country people themselves are against that particular drug? So you realize it's also leaving the government between a hard and rocky place. By the end of the day, it's about winning the trust of the Ugandans to make sure that whenever anything like that happens, it's the word of that anti-vaxxer against the word of the government. But when it comes back to the local anti-vaxxers, I mean, you're looking at I think the biggest cited anti-vaxxer at the moment is a former journalist I'm choosing to use all those because they lead to something. Former journalist and former presidential candidate. That is Kabuleta. And the reason as to why all this is unfolding like this, one, in a certain way, he has won some bit of trust in the Ugandans. To a certain degree, from his time as a journalist, sports journalist especially, he won the trust of some of the Ugandans. So when he comes up to say something, some will listen. And when he comes with facts and somewhere for you to refer, then that means he has given a Ugandan a reason to think for themselves and say, maybe I actually shouldn't, but he has given them a place to think and make a decision for themselves. Also, the government shouldn't put itself in a place where it is vulnerable to the bullets from the anti-vaxxers. What do I mean? If you are saying that if you're saying that you are living in a country where people's rights are preserved, then why do we have the forceful vaccinations that were happening, especially back then? That was one thing that was used by the anti-vaxxers, both locally and internationally, to instigate people to shun even more away from these vaccines. So it goes back down to how do we earn the trust of the Ugandans without having to put government on the edge when it comes to the attacks that come from the anti-vaxxers. That's what I would say.
Well,
also
and,
just
just a quick one, Chirabo. And for our dear viewer out there, you can as well share your view or opinions on this topic that we're having this morning on our WhatsApp number that is right on your screen, so that we can get to listen to you, your view on the fact that the government is looking for funds to destroy millions of expired COVID-19 vaccines. What do you think the problem was? And then, of course, how can we solve such issues in the long run? Yes, Jerome.
I was looking at ways through which government can ensure more vaccine uptake. You know, certain times you don't have to be the champion of the village. You must bring in other, because there are measures that have proven. We're a country that believes so much in our religious leaders. How informed are they to rally people to go for these vaccines? Because I want to tell you, if I'm a Christian and my archbishop says take children for vaccination, and my pastor says take children for vaccination, Sabasumba, when he stands in Lubaga Cathedral and says, people, because he has been given sufficient information and knowledge, people, let's go for these vaccines. When my cultural leader, when my king speaks, look at HIV/AIDS. Do you know how many participated in the Kabaka birthday run with the aim of getting money to ensure we end HIV/AIDS by 2030? Do you know how many people tested and got to know their status? But you see, the problem sometimes, the people in the government, sometimes they keep it to themselves. I think they have strategies. Have you engaged the media? First, to ensure these people are going to communicate. We do talk shows here, we speak. Don't call us for a press conference. Call them to take them through and understand and have sufficient knowledge so that when they go to speak, they know about vaccines. I can speak about vaccines because of personal knowledge and speaking to people like Dr. Duruware, a number of them who will give you sufficient information, because there's so much negativity. There's so much wrong information about vaccines, and it can't entirely be on people, because when an official from Ministry of Health comes to talk about vaccines, so it would be very easy for you to say, Abobali, you know, actually they're the same people having these vaccines. But when my Katikiro, when our king, Zibaruri, Mwasansozi comes and says he's speaking and rallying us for vaccination. Sabasajja Kabaka. and says go. But you're going to keep it to yourselves. You're the people who have the money, who are given the money. The people want to go and talk about this. Hey.
Well, Chirabo and Chantal, I want to also draw your attention to this. On the issue to do with storage, do you think we are also having an issue as a country when it comes to storage facilities of these drugs? And how safe are our stores to keep such vaccines or even drugs? Because this is not, there was also a report last year in regards to expired drugs. So when you look at this kind of situation, if we have these issues recurring here and there, is it because our storage facilities are also not up to standard, or that is not something to worry about?
A quick one I would say. With drugs, it is nothing to do with storage.
Okay.
Because these are not that maybe water, there was a leakage on the roof.
Okay.
But
They have an expiry
when
date.
drugs are being manufactured, when vaccines are being manufactured, they have a lifespan. So what is happening is they are kept in safe storage systems. We have one of the best in the region.
Okay.
But the challenge is the lifetime they have. So when it comes, however good you've stored them, they have expired.
Okay. And I'll now get back to Chantal Oliver Kandinda. The way forward for the country, because it does seem like this is not, giving us a good example for Uganda's health system, by the way. If you're to give us, a comment or two in regards to this, Chantal, as we are summing up with our conversation this morning, what do you think needs to be done in the long term so that we do not have such issues? Because by the look of things, God forbid, we are likely to be having, mass vaccinations of various, diseases coming up. But how do we control such occurrences of expiring vaccines in the future?
Well, in the future, we would have to consider how we talk to the Ugandans, or how much trust Ugandans have in the systems and in the campaigns that are being launched. But also, when was the last time you heard about active mass campaigns or mass vaccination campaigns, especially for COVID-19? I believe it's been a couple of years. So that means even the government at some point relaxed the mass campaigns. And that is something to also think about, and I think I'll leave that to you two gentlemen. But my parting shot would be, let's have more trust we are earning from the Ugandans.
All right, and now back to you, Chirabo, in a minute. What would be your last message, one to the Ministry of Health, in regards to how we can control such occurrences from happening so that we are only left with destroying millions of vaccines?
You cannot do it alone. People may not trust you. You need champions in this. You need ambassadors in this. You need traditional leaders or cultural leaders to be leading this. You need religious leaders to be leading this. But you, a commissioner in charge of vaccination, thinking you're the very person, people see you in a different perspective. If a journalist spoke about this, if a religious leader spoke, if a cultural leader spoke, people have trust in them more than they have in government officials. Take that work, pass on the load to these people. Outstanding people in the public, there are so many. Pass on, put them on board. And I want to tell you, the public, these campaigns will go further. We've seen this with the Uganda Kingdom, the sickle cell drive, the fistula drive, the HIV, and HIV by 2030, and it has worked. So we have a formula that has worked. We have a methodology that has worked. Let's embrace it. But thinking with our officials from the ministry, that aren't going to work.
Well, thank you very much, Robert and Chantal Oliver Kandinda. Now, that is it for our newsreel, but you get to realize that the vaccines in question was stocked during the COVID-19 pandemic. Was between 2020 to 2022, 2 years between that. Now it's 4 years down the road, if I'm to put it in that way. 3-4 years down the road, and the majority now of these vaccines have already expired. The question is, are all Ugandans vaccinated against COVID-19 or not? And if at all they aren't, what went wrong? I am Joram Paul Sonko. Coming up is the UBC Tourism Express with Alan Namisango. Stick around. Good morning.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
Amina gange ndetibona Kiranda Amina mu company eya WIB Uganda Limited ndi member. Wemba member company eno weyeida twalinga tutuli bulungi ng'abakyala abe wakawaka. Abakyala abe wakawaka tuemera kubaami baife nga bonkana abajamu nanda nga twidi nti abakyala tebakozesa ki nanda. UN Women weyeida yatuteekateeka yatwegesa okulunda engege ng'abakyala. Twatandika beno okudulunda n'okudirisa n'okolaki twafunamu ng'abakyala aba Bugiri district. Abakyala ba Bugiri district sofa tuli abakyala 14 abakola project eya WIB. Abakyala 14 twayawula mu sectors. Mulimu abakyala ba production abaliisa, mwaba abakyala ba validation abongera engege omutindo bayongerako omutindo, twaba n'abakyala ba harvesting abaharvestinga, twaba n'abakyala abakola aba marketing. Sector donna diri trained era didi kyedikola ki kyedikola. Project eno tufunyemu ng'abakyala. Government yaife ne ya Uganda njebaza okujja kujanga batulingirira mu ng'abakyala abana Uganda. Eri kujanga eturobingira ebibiina bingi. We have UWeb, baleta parish development model, we have Myoga. Byonna biri kwida muki mu bakyala oba mu bantu abaki aba Uganda.
UBC is the national public broadcaster. We educate, inform, entertain, and inspire our audiences. You can watch us on free-to-air channel 001, DSTV channel 282, GoTV channel 371, Star Times channel 201, Zuku TV channel 20, and Azam TV channel 350. Even when your subscription expires, you can still watch UBC for free on your pay TV platforms.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
Semuliki National Park is one of those beautiful games that are not given a lot of attention. Yet amidst the beautiful tree species that we have here, the number of primate species that we have here, some that are even endangered to this national park. When you talk about the landscapes are immensely beautiful, but the park has not been given attention as that it deserves. So today we explore the beautiful games that are in this national park. However, one of the commonest highlights of this destination has been the Empire Hot Springs. This is a starter destination. Almost everyone who has thought about exploring Uganda, every tourist has thought about traveling around Uganda. This has been one of the commonest attractions that they've been to. However, they've not even gone to other places or known what is really happening in this place. But we take you through the Empire Hot Springs and basically the male hot springs, because these hot springs are very gender sensitive. There is the female and also the male hot spring, and there is a very beautiful cultural story behind these hot springs that you need. I mean, it's the geographical formations that we have, the volcanicity, the fault lines, faulting. There are also a cultural story that is very beautiful that you need to listen. This is the GM Tourism Express with Irene Ale Namisang, and we take you through Semuliki Valley National Park.
So welcome to the male hot springs. We are aware that the Empire Hot Springs exists into male and female. It is gender sensitive, and at this location is the site for the male hot springs. And now what's interesting that male hot spring is in a pool like Crater Lake, where water constantly boils. And I can assure you it is the hottest environment around the hot springs. The highest temperature ever recorded here went up to 106 degrees Celsius. These temperatures vary, 106 degrees Celsius. And that is very, very hot. And that's why you see here, we realize that the female hot springs will allow people to, freely boil food. It's easier for people to interact more at the other side. Here you can't boil the food because accessing the spring water means that you walk on this small layer. I can assure you don't get deceived that that layer you are seeing is very strong. It forms as the water comes from the ground with a lot of minerals and continues cooling down, forming that layer. So that means that it is deceptive. If you walk on it and your weight is, you are heavy, that small layer breaks because it is just mere calcium phosphate. So it will break down and then you will end up getting burnt. So always when you're near hot springs, take a lot of caution. Two, there's a lot of algae. You see shades of different colors, green, brown, yellow, and the like. That is very slippery. Always avoid stepping there because you slide and you get burnt. So at the male hot springs, we only enjoy viewing, taking photographs, but we do not boil food here. But then you see that white stuff? What do you think it could be? This is salt trying to accumulate. Real salt, because the water from the hot springs is highly mineralized, and one of the minerals there is sodium chloride. That is the real typical salt. And once you pick it, you test it. We do this at the female hot springs where we are able to access it. For Ugandans who have not been here, this site for the male hot springs. The hot springs are gender sensitive, they're both female and male. But where we are is the male hot springs. The reason is why the stories here are legendary, that we have one clan called the Bamaga. The Bamaga are close to Bamaga campsite. It's the only community that is near the park here in Sempaya. And these guys believe that this site is for the ancestors. How did it come? There was a lady and a group of females who had gone collecting firewood in the neighborhood. Now, when they were collecting firewood, they reported a person they saw, a male, who was moving in a zigzag form in the forest. They couldn't know why. And then what they did, they went and they reported home and said, we have found a person who we could not identify. Now, when their men came, their husbands, indeed they found a guy who they couldn't identify in the forest and is moving in a funny way. So they talked to him and they took him home. They gave him accommodation, gave him food, and he stayed with them. They got to learn that this man was a hunter, and then he continued with his hunting spree all the time. Unfortunately, in one day, this guy never returned back home. They waited and waited, they couldn't find this man, couldn't come back. So what happened, people decided to go for a search. And when the Bamaga moved around and searched the area, they couldn't find the guy. They moved again a second day, moved. What happened that in this area here, they found his spear. And they found some of the rags, the clothes he used to put on. And they went and informed the wife and said, we found the remains, parts of the husband, the clothes, and then the spear he uses for hunting. And then those guys thought this should be the place where this man has disappeared from. And because there was an associated feature here, they said this is a male hot spring where the male disappeared from. Now, in the same vein, as they looked for this man, of course the wife was also involved. And before they named this, they looked around when the lady was still looking for the husband couldn't be seen at that time. And then, unfortunately, we don't know what happened at the time. The lady also, they found her remains, parts of her body and the piece of the stick and her clothes on the other side alone. So when these guys started, said, maybe our ancestors have taken these guys. And therefore, where the lady has disappeared from, they named it a female hot spring, and where the man disappeared from, they named it a male hot spring.
Hello there, good morning, and many thanks for sticking around to Good Morning Uganda. It's time for the GMU business now, and the United States is committed to providing humanitarian assistance, according to details coming through. This assistance is heading to the refugees and asylum seekers with more than 25 million US dollars. That is about 94.7 billion Ugandan shillings. And according to the press statement, which was issued by the U.S. Department of State's office as the spokesperson, this assistance is being provided in conjunction with the State Department's Bureau of Population, Refugees and Migration, and then the United States Agency for International Development to help the asylum seekers in Uganda or the refugee settlers in Uganda. Now, the statement further indicates that the 14 million US dollars, about 53 billion shillings, will be also contributed, and again to the United Nations High Commission for Refugees. Then the USAID is also providing $11 million to the World Food Program, which will again be pushed into the asylum seekers program in Uganda. Now, Uganda hosts the highest number of refugees with about 1.6 million of refugees, surpassing any African country. And according to a statement dated April 12, 2024, Uganda last year received more than 130,000 new refugees from South Sudan and the Democratic Republic of Congo. Some came from Somalia, and then the others came from Sudan. The U.S. also said it is committed to providing the necessary humanitarian assistance to the refugee and asylum seekers without any discrimination, because it does seem like Uganda is providing these asylum seekers with some free land until their countries go back to a political, stable society. And well, when you look at it from, from the Ugandan perspective, it is extending more support to Uganda's government when it comes to taking care of these refugees. Now, away from that, government is set to set up a new tax compliance liaison office that will be centered in the capital of Kampala. The office is expected to deal with concerns from especially traders regarding taxes. This is in a bid to reduce hostilities against tax payment, according to URA. And of course, this was revealed by the URA Director General John Musinguzi Rujoki. He did reveal that this will be dedicated with a team to educate the taxpayers, help them overcome the fear of technology, because technology is the way to go, and that means filing returns, getting to understand e-freeze, and then also being able to clear your taxes. You'll have to be able to use technology and the internet. Now, Rujoki was speaking during a local radio show over the weekend. Now, the development comes against a backdrop of protests last week against e-freeze, where traders went on a 2-day strike, closing down their shops in order to strike against e-freeze, so as Uganda Revenue Authority can work or scrap it off, according to many of the traders who find it quite a challenge in their day-to-day businesses. Now, the traders emphasize that the need for the present intervention is also something that many of them are looking forward to, and they believe that that meeting will have their unanswered queries dealt with in the long run. Now, of course, one may wonder what many of the traders are still having as a concern. IFRIS is on top of the agenda, but not only that, when you also look back at the rent areas that many of them are still having to deal with, it also creates an unstable environment for many traders to continue having a free business, changing opportunity for one or two. And now lastly, from our business this morning, SACCO's 5.8 billion shillings case to be had in Kaliro High Court. Now, this is an interesting one because the case where 3 officials of Kaliro District Local Government accused of money laundering and causing financial loss to the tune of around 5.8 billion Ugandan shillings will be had in a criminal session in the Kaliro High Court. The case involves the Chief Finance Officer, Godfrey Mutome, and Accountant John Wabwire and Human Resource Officer Rebecca Kwagala, who are accused of causing loss to the government. Now, Mutome, Wabwire and Kwagala are facing charges including embezzlement under Section 19 of the Anti-Corruption Act 2009, and then money laundering as per Section 3B and 136(1)(a) of the Money Laundering Act 2013, and causing financial loss under Section 20 of the Anti-Corruption Act 2009. Kwagala is the only one facing the charge of causing financial losses, though, as Justice Lawrence Gidudu, head of the Anti-Corruption Division of the High Court, located at Nakasero in Kampala, said that the hearing will take place in Kaliro on June 18th, 19th, 20th, and 21st this year. While adjourning the case on April 9th, 2024, Gidudu stated that the proceedings would take place in Kaliro, where the majority of the witnesses are located. And meanwhile, Gidudu rejected the request by the accused persons not to transfer the case to Kaliro. And now let's look at the forex market, courtesy of the Bank of Uganda, how you will find the various currencies faring this morning. The US dollar did close at 3,799.75. That is buying. Then selling closed at 3,809.75 shillings. Then the Great Britain pound was buying at 4,763.36 shillings, while selling was 4,775.90 shillings. The euro was buying at 4,068.39, while selling at 4,079.09. The Kenyan shilling was buying at 29.22 shillings, while selling at 29.30 shillings. The Tanzanian shilling was buying at 1.46 shillings, while selling at 1.47 shillings, as the South African rand was buying at 202.72, while selling at 203.26. And well, that is how you will find the forex market as you're moving out to exchange some foreign currencies. And well, it is now time for the traffic updates. Believe me, it does seem like it's going to be some heavy traffic on Kampala roads simply because of the rains. And Chantal Oliver Kanenda is standing right here to give us a clear roadmap of how you can beat it. Stick around.
Good morning once again. Thank you for joining us. This is Good Morning Uganda, and these are the traffic updates. If you're trying to make your way to town, let's see the best route that you can use, or let's see if I can get for you the status of some of these places so that you decide whether to take those routes or not. But if you are still at home, please do remember to carry something warm. However, we expect temperatures to go up to 26 degrees Celsius, especially from around 1 p.m. upwards, downwards, whichever. But yes, the rest of the half of the day after 1 p.m. is likely to be a little hotter than how the morning is, so also bear that in mind. Now, if you're coming from Nambole side, Chireka shopping center side, you will be finding traffic all the way into Banda, but Banda has a little bit of holdups. However, I would regard it safe for you to move. Onto Banda stage, you are safe to move. As you can see, the only time you will be finding traffic is when you are approaching the Spear Road Junction or Spear Junction. That is the road that has the route that takes you to Ntinda Road or brings you from Ntinda Road, the route that also cuts through to take you to Nakawa side, but also the route that takes you to Chinawataka. That is the junction that I'm talking about. It is mad with a lot of traffic. If you're coming from Ntinda, also going to Ntinda, you'll be headed for some holdups in there that will be taking a bit of your time, so please do be mindful. If I proceed onto the Nakawa Road, as you can see, there is a lot of traffic. The holdups seem to be more than where traffic moves quite slowly. But the side of the Nakawa market, for you who is coming from town, you are safe to move. However, you who is coming to town, there is traffic and a few places where it loosens a bit, but generally you are headed for some traffic. Still onto the Kampala-Jinja Highway, as you can see, when you are approaching the lights, you will be finding a lot of traffic. So if you have another route, you can take, you're safe to move. However, Newport Bell Road is okay for you to move. That means if you're going to the Nakawa Business Park, you're seemingly okay to move. However, after that, when you're approaching the MOOB's main gate, there is a lot of traffic for both those who are coming and those who are going. And further on to the Newport Bell Road, there is a lot of traffic. And I would advise, if you can take a different route, please do. That side seems to be crazy with traffic at the moment. But if you're proceeding on through the Kampala-Jinja Highway, you are okay to move, and you'll be finding a bit of traffic when you are approaching the lights that take you to Lugogo Bypass, or the one, or where, if you choose, you can proceed onto the Kampala-Jinja Highway. If you're coming from Lugogo Bypass side, when you're approaching the lights, that's where you'll be finding traffic. The rest of the holdups are coming from the side of, if you're trying to join Naguru Road, that is onto Lugogo Bypass, you'll be finding traffic. However, after that, the only place you'll also find traffic or slow movement is when you are trying to enter the junction that takes you to the Embassy of Russia. That is where you'll be finding slow traffic. But short of that, you are safe to move. As you can see, Lugogo Bypass is generally safe for you to move in case you're trying to get a route that you can use. But then again, when you are trying to get into the Upper Kololo Terrace Road, you are headed for a lot of traffic. Impala Avenue has traffic in there. Wampeo Avenue is relatively safe, just slow movement, but you are okay to move. Lower Kololo Terrace, you have a lot of traffic. That is the route that is below the airstrip. You are literally, when I take a look, you're okay to move until you get to the lights. These lights that have the Metropole Hotel, shortly after the lights that also have Medipol, that is why you'll be finding some good traffic on that route. And then when you proceed downwards, going further onto the fairway lights, that is why you'll be finding a lot of traffic. If you are someone that is coming from town trying to join the fairway lights, you'll be finding a lot of traffic. And if you are joining the Golf Course Road, you are okay to move, as you can see, or also known as Yusuf Olole Road, trying to make your way to Garden City side. There is free movement. However, when you get to the roundabout, you'll be finding a lot of traffic, especially if you are staying on the side that has Oasis Mall, trying to move towards the Ginger Road Junction or the Ginger Road lights. That is where you'll be finding a lot of traffic. Brace yourself. And if you are still coming, if you're still coming from the Lugogo Bypass side or the Ginger Road Highway, actually, there is a lot of traffic on that road. I would suggest, if you have another route that you can use, kindly take a different one. As you can see, the red zones are really deep as you're getting to that, the roundabout that takes you to Wampeo Avenue, the roundabout that brings you further onto Ginger Road. You'll be finding a lot of traffic on there at this point. And if you're trying to use Access Road, it has a lot of traffic as well. Mukwano Road is mad with terrible traffic. I would highly recommend that you choose another route in case you have another route that you can use. And if you're proceeding further into town, you will be safe to move after the Ginger Road lights. After you have cut through, if you're trying to get to Kampala Road or make your way further into town, the only time you'll be finding traffic is at the junction that takes you to the railway side, to Victoria University side. That is where you'll be finding more traffic. But short of that, the side of Toban Center, there will be no traffic until you get to the junction. Until you get to the junction that leads you further into Kampala Road, the part that has Suits Avenue. That's where you'll be finding a little bit of a hold-up. But after that, Kampala Road is safe. All the way, as you can see, there is nothing much to worry about. All the way to Arua Park Plaza, there is no traffic. Watoto Church downtown, usually that place has a bit of traffic because of the junction on there. Short of that, you are safe to move. Kampala Road is safe. So if you're trying to make your way to town, you're okay. Bombo Road, as you can see, for both who are going and leaving town, you are safe to move until you reach the junction. That is Wandegea side. That is where you'll be finding a lot of traffic, definitely because of those lights. You'll be finding traffic. Short of that, going further inside Wandegea, you will realize that there will be traffic. I'm still on Bombo Road as I'm trying to now move backwards, and Bombo Road is relatively safe for you to move, especially for you who is coming to town. However, if you are at the junction, or if you're going to use the part that has the junction that leads you to the Synagogue Church of All Nations, you are headed for a lot of traffic. A lot of traffic. Anyone on Gayaza Road, too much traffic. If you have another route you can use, I highly recommend that you take another one. As you can see, it's marked with the deep red zones indicating a lot of traffic. Well, I've tried to see how to balance it for you who is trying to move. So Gayaza Road is terrible. It's marked with a lot of traffic. If you're trying to also make your way to town and you're thinking of using what I would call access routes inside Kololo, I would highly recommend you do not. But also Ginger Road is marked with a lot of traffic. Please do be mindful. And when it rains, the roads get really slippery. So I would highly suggest that you don't step on the gas as much as you usually do. Otherwise, that is how we are standing in terms of traffic updates. I wish you a wonderful Monday and week ahead. Good morning.
Live from UPC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
Was brought to you by
just take a polite loan of 200k to stock on my shop. The signs and symptoms of success. The bank commander, not the bank teller.
Why hassle for a loan when you've got MTN Momo? We're sorting. Use the Momo app or dial *165*5# for all quick loans. Choose from the different loan options from our partners and get one that works for you. Together, we're unstoppable.
Mukoke Fish Farmers Association tuli balunzi ba byananda ebyebika ebisatu omuli Miracap, tilapia oba engege ni catfish twete male. Group eno twatandika twali abantu basatu nga tulingirira obwetaavu obwebyenanda obw'obwiva eno okubona nti tufuna okasente akava mu maadi agali gatambula butambule nga gatubita ku wanu ng'ekirabo. Twatandika ni fish pond ndala mu mwaka gw'2018. Twebaza fisheries officer ni district ya Bugiri babanga batulagirira kusani fish farm ebwikwe ni side day ndeyo twabanga tusobola okufuna kwetusaako obugege obwasooka era mu mwaka ogwali 2022 awo basobola okubanga batuwaayo ebyenanda emitwalo dali ena okuva mu operation werese creation. Era okuba yongereza ku emmere yatuweebwa okuva Uganda Poultry Breeders. Twasobola okubanga tusoloza akasente akawerera obukayire nga 42. Twasobola okubanga tubuinvestinga oba okubona nti twongerezaako ku bimu ku bintu bye tukola gano. Twebaza gavumenti yaife okubanga buli saawa efaayo okubanga efeeri y'Abannayuganda.
Nyati Motion Pictures brings you Tuko Pamoja, a documentary film about our unity as Ugandans and Africans.
Bunyoro would have simply created an East African community that we are looking for today.
The rulers of Bunyoro are actually Luos.
We people who live across the Nile, we are so related from our myth or from just the Nile.
We are the same people, and genetically we are even the same people.
We are similar people.
We are one.
Pamoja, we are one.
Use that word, pamoja.
Premiering every week from 3rd February to June 2024 at the National Theatre and Indere Center. Daily screenings are from 4th February to June 2024 at Ham Cinemax and the National Theatre. To get a ticket, call 0778 787 660. Tuko Pamoja?
UBC is the national public broadcaster. We educate, inform, entertain, and inspire our audiences. You can watch us on free-to-air channel 001, DSTV channel 282, GoTV channel 371, Star Times channel 201, Zuku TV channel 20, and Azam TV channel 350. Even when your subscription expires, you can still watch UBC for free on your pay TV platforms.
Live from UPC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
Good morning. In case you've just joined, this is Good Morning Uganda, and we are here from 6:30. Welcome to the agenda, where we usually have a guest in studios and discuss issues of national concern. Now, this morning we want to look at the budget, because a budget is what you plan, your planned revenue or your planned income, and how you plan to spend it. Now, for a country, a national budget is something very critical, because that shows what the country expects to collect and how they plan to spend what they have collected. Now, every sector is yearning to ensure that it is captured in this budget. We've moved in the process, because now the budget process begins as early as the first budget, the previous budget is read. Now we have nationwide consultations. We've seen ministries present their budgets, and of course Parliament must look through, scrutinize. We've seen agencies. The entire of last week we saw ministerial policies coming up. We saw the group of the opposition coming up with an alternative budget, and sectors are yearning to see that they get part of the national cake. This time around we are looking at a budget of 58 trillion. If I round it at that. And the financial year ending, we've been running on a budget of 52 trillion. Now, URA is expected to collect 29.9 trillion of this budget. That is money expected from taxes, what you're going to pay. That's why even we saw new tax proposals, a tax on land transaction, a tax on cement, a tax on money transactions, and we saw a tax on fuel. All these is to say that they get more money. Now, like I said, sectors are saying, where are we left? Now, the cooperators are also yearning and saying, government, please, as you're considering, we need more money for this sector. We are here, we are a good model, but we need money to ensure that we can move more and better perform. I have the man himself, Ivan Asimwe, who is the General Secretary, Uganda Cooperative Alliance, who said, Robert, at this stage we must make noise. We must sound the drums. We also need more. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning, moderator. Good morning, our viewers. Good morning, everyone. Happy to be here.
Now, Ivan, when you talk about the budget, and you people claiming and saying we need to be looked more into this budget, first and foremost, one would want to ask, what do you bring on the table? Because we need revenue before we talk about saying we need more money. Yes, cooperatives.
Thank you so much. As you rightly say, first of all, we need to understand what is a budget. Just briefly, what the government plans to receive and how it is going to spend it. As simple as that. Now, why cooperatives? I have always mentioned that cooperatives form the basis of a developing country, especially this country, Uganda. There is no way, and I want listeners and the viewers to hear this, there is no way, there is no magic that we are going to use as a country to socially and economically transform this economy without cooperatives. Completely, it can't work. We have tried capitalism. You remember, after liberalization, since the 90s, where are we? The poverty has increased. Why? Because capitalism favors a few at the expense of majority. And it is really championed by the developed world because they know that their companies, their multinationals, will come to exploit developing countries. And that is why, even strategically, they ensure that they avoid cooperative education in the whole education curriculum. They try to teach capitalism. Just go to economics, capitalism. Go to commerce, capitalism. So they start from down because they know once cooperatives flourish in a developing world, they will control their economies. Like it is in Europe and America. I've been mentioning this. You go to Germany, you go to France, go to Norway, go to whichever UK cooperatives, go to Asia Pacific, South Korea, Malaysia, cooperatives, India, cooperatives, go to America, same story. Now, and those cooperatives of theirs, because they are too big, they now form companies which become multinationals, and these multinationals come here. So they make money and take the money back to their economies, and the money is shared through cooperatives. Now, back here, I'm very happy with the government. If you have to look at, let's say, how much government has invested in the cooperatives, and the way government has adopted the cooperative model, I think we're on the right track. Look at PDM. Much as people criticize it, much as it has implementation challenges, but the issue is, have you started?
So much money of the budget.
Yes, so much
into
money.
PDM.
So that's why I give credit to government for this innovation, ensuring that the PDM is there, which is the parish development model circles at every parish, and almost over 1.1 trillion goes there every year. That's a lot of money. Then you go to Emyoga, same story. Then you go to compensation of cooperative unions, much as also there are some issues, but government has done its part. So we cannot fail to give credit to government as cooperatives. However, we need now to move a step. How do we support these cooperatives like other countries have done? Go to Brazil. Even in the constitution of Brazil, they emphasize support of cooperatives. In their constitution, most of the articles, they emphasize support to cooperatives. Why? Because if you are to look at the exports of Brazil, majority of them are agricultural based, coffee and others. Now, still we have to look at their economy. Over 3/4 of the farmers, the money that comes in is from 3/4 of the large-scale farmers. But they are only composed of just 10% of the entire farming community. So it means that the 90% are smallholder farmers. So in order for you to support this sector, they support cooperatives. They make sure that these smallholder farmers are aggregated in cooperatives, government supports them, and they are able to tap into the market, the entire value chains. You go to Korea, same story.
Now here, Ivan, we are looking at figures. We are looking at money being put. And when you look at our budgets, consecutively, money going into poverty alleviation by the NRM government has been increasing, not reducing. This time around, you look at over $1 trillion that still is going into this sector. So when we talk about calling for more funding, in which direction? Haven't you had enough and you've just misused this money? Because let's be very honest, we've seen a lot of initiatives using the cooperative model. And I want to say this because we don't know if it's been used to the latter or something similar to it. But still the model. When you talk about youth livelihood, when you talk about yoga, circles, our brothers and sisters, are cooperatives, not so?
Yes.
And this is where government has put a lot of money in circles. Do you believe the money being given to you as cooperatives in our budgets has been put to proper use before you claim for more?
Unfortunately, all the previous models that you are talking about have not been adopting the cooperative model. And that is why we called upon government. And that's why I'm giving it a credit. Because it is now that the government really realized that supporting these individuals will not help. So they now came up with these models, the PDM, the Myoga, and the others. Much as there are some implementation challenges, you can never be clean all through. But at least coming up with this model is of recent, not the past. So why we are saying this, Bwana Chirabo, it's not a matter of creating a revolving fund and you take money there at the parish level. No. You must build the structures and systems. You can put money, it's not like you just earning your salary and you keep putting it on your account. You must think, how am I going to use this money to multiply it? I will tell you, if government adopts a very good strategy, you see this money they are putting in the cooperatives, this money can be recouped as fast as possible and the economy is able to move. Why? Because you are bringing many people in the money equation. The 39%, according to UBOS, comes into the money economy. But previously, they have been using the other models, whereby individuals, like you are talking about the Youth Livelihood Fund, they would put money in banks, and then the youth would come and apply individually. But here, I think government realized that in order to bring many people in the equation, then support the cooperative model. Now, what are we saying?
But still even in this, they'll target a group of 5 up to 10 under Myoga.
No, those are not cooperatives. A cooperative idea is different, and a cooperative has a minimum number of 30 people, and it must be registered by the Register of Cooperatives, and it must be guided by the Cooperative Societies Act, Cap 112. So any other group, I don't speak for them because I don't know their ideology. I talk for the cooperatives. Now, this is why I'm saying for now, government is using the cooperative model. Previously, maybe it was the group methodology, but groups are not sustainable. So now, what are we saying? You are putting this money as a revolving fund at the parish level, forgetting that before you put money there, you need to prepare people. You know, the problem of Africa and Uganda is not that we don't have resources. I tell you, if God was to really come back here to see how we have mismanaged Africa as a continent, I don't think you'll be happy. Because God gave us everything, everything. You can imagine now the rains are there. The soils are very fertile. Security, such things. But we are poor. I always tell you. Someone says, Ivan, you are poor. No, it doesn't mean that you don't have money. You are just passing on opportunities repeatedly. Giving your wealth to other people to make money, and for you remain poor, which is very unfortunate. So, with the cooperatives, you now bring people together. In the equation, if are they coffee farmers, bring them together. Dairy, bring them together. The journalists like you and others, you bring them together. Why should you get an investor? I have been having challenges with the Uganda Investment Authority. Why do you go to America, to Europe to look for investors Why don't you develop the internal content? Why don't we have educated people here? Can't we mobilize these journalists? Why would you go outside to look for someone to come and invest in media when you have the media people? Why would you run to look for someone to invest in health when you have doctors here? Why would you go to look for Chinese to construct roads when you have your own engineers? What do you do? Empower them, support them, give them the necessary capacity. I don't think that Africans are foolish. We have the brains like those people. But what is lacking is support. So once you have brought these people together, like I've mentioned, you have supported PDM. That is not enough. You need capacity building. You need to prepare people. You need to work on the mindset. What is causing this poverty? What is it? Are you aware that, Mr. Moderator, there are people who are still getting money at 20%, 30% from the money lenders? And they are losing their properties. So, however, they don't know that a PDM circle has been formed. They don't know there are other circles that have been formed where they can actually come and get this money and develop. So it should be now the role of government to ensure that we put more money in capacity building. This is why we are saying, yes, government, thank you for injecting this money. However, there is a need, as you make the budget, there is a need to put money in areas of ensuring that these cooperatives move to the next level. One, capacity building. Train them. Even when you check on the international cooperative principles, there is information, training, and education.
But
it
this
is
one
there
of the
as a
areas
principle.
where people believe that sometimes money is not put to proper use. When you look at budgets of various organizations, when you look at so much is spent on workshops, and we've seen financial critics saying, but no, when we scrutinize training, you called it, there's a term that usually these people use.
Which one? Workshops?
Live workshops.
Conferences?
Conferences. Capacity building.
Yes.
You know? Capacity building workshop. Capacity building workshop. And at the end of the day, the budget allocated to that particular sector, much of it goes to capacity building than actually the service they need. Because cooperators, I want to believe that maybe they need more money to be injected into their various
No, fortunately,
bodies.
cooperatives are very unique. Like I've been mentioning, cooperatives in this country are very unique. And in fact, it's global. That people need to understand, first of all, why are you cooperating? What are the principles? What are the values? What is the ideology? Once you understand that, then you are able to go. Well, that is why previously when you talk of the cooperatives of 1950s, 60s, early 70s, they were very strong because much emphasis was on capacity building, training, mentorship, backstopping. We are not talking about bringing people to Serena or Sheraton. No. These cooperators, you go on the ground. I have been in a circle, I've been in a cooperative for 20 years. I worked in a circle for 8 years, up to the level of a general manager. But I will tell you, Mr. Chirabo, you go to a circle and you teach them how to prepare day sheets, waste sheets, till sheets, pass books, register, all those. They need hand-holding. Why? Because there is no school in this country that teaches cooperatives at bachelor's, master's, and PhD level. You get me? So you need to go there physically and you train them. Like now these PDM circles, you make sure they have operational policies. The human resource policy, the savings policy, the credit policy, the bulking and production policy, the marketing policy, all those, the governance policy, the supervisory policy, the vetting policy, there are so many. And how many people know how to make those ones? Because they have not studied them. So that is why government, yes, good we have put money here, but these cooperators, these cooperatives that have been formed, they need those policies in order for them to operate very well. So who is going to do it? Then you get people who know, put money there, and you ensure that, you know, it's like getting a cow and you expect milk, but you are not feeding it. So make sure, yes, you have formed these cooperatives, feed them very well, so that eventually when they grow, they are going to increase the tax base. So for us here as cooperators, we are not looking at government spending. We are telling government, spend it today and get more money in the future. Because if these cooperatives came together and they are supporting very many members, they are supporting very many businesses, then that is a tax revenue for the side of government. So you are investing, but you shall recoup a lot of money. Because cooperatives are here to stay, they are not going to take the money out of the country. That is the beauty with cooperatives as opposed to capitalism. Because these investors, after making profits, all the money will be expatriated.
Yes.
But if these cooperatives are empowered and they have the money here, they are controlling businesses, then they help you to develop the economy. Number two, you need to support the commercial officers. You know, Chirabo, we have commercial officers on the ground.
They are there.
They are there.
Yes,
Last year we trained them.
Yes.
Over 500, 600 commercial officers, every district in the country. A district, a city, a municipality has a commercial officer. And there is a district commercial officer plus the staff, the municipal commercial officer, the staff, the city commercial officer with many staff. Now, all these people, they are the ones who supervise, who mentor, who audit, who do everything for these cooperatives. So for them to be able to do their work, they need capacitation and facilitation. So all of that, we tell government, as you budget, focus on that one. Because these are the people, these are the foot soldiers on the ground who are going to help us to support these cooperatives to grow. Another thing, you need audit and supervision. Now, remember, you have put money in a cooperative, but you need efficiency and effectiveness. You want to ensure that there is value for money at the end of the day. So you need now to empower that department of audit and supervision. You need to give more money to Ministry of Trade, Industry and Cooperatives, the Department of Cooperatives. You need to support Uganda Cooperative Alliance so that both of them come together and they help you to do the audit and supervision. Otherwise, you are going to put money there, the money will be stolen, nobody will follow it up because you have not put resources in that area. Another thing, Chirabo, why we are telling government, according to the Cooperative Societies Act, Section 73, and even based on the ruling of Honorable Justice Andrew Bashija of Mbarara 2010, if a cooperative has a dispute, the law says don't go to court. Go through arbitration. Now the procedure for arbitration is, if you're a cooperative and I'm a member, and there is a dispute, maybe you are Chibinge, I'm Ivan who is a member. I have brought my coffee, 1 ton, you are saying no, you brought 500 kgs. There is a dispute there. The law says, Chirabo, don't go to court. You must go through arbitration, whereby me and you, we agree on an arbitrator. In the case we fail, that subsection 2 says, you get yours, I get mine, the two arbitrators get the third person. In the case you fail, then subsection 5 says, the General Secretary of Uganda Cooperative Alliance shall appoint an arbitrator on request of either party. Are you seeing the law? Now, in a case arbitration takes place and one of the parties is aggrieved, then the law says you make an appeal to the board of Uganda Cooperative Alliance. Ideally, this means that UCA is a court. So, and where you have very many people, you expect disputes. And I think these guys, the legal fraternity was very careful not to have these cases piling up in the court. That's why they created this as an independent court for cooperatives. Now, you have a court, but you are not financing it. You are financing the judiciary, but you are not financing the Uganda Cooperative Alliance, which is by law empowered to do arbitration. And the law says the decision of the UCA board is final, and it is an equivalent of a court and can be enforced. Oh, you see where we are. So given that, You need money there because you expect a lot of disputes. As I speak today, I have over 10 cases to handle. Now, what do we do? Because there is no budget for that, we require the parties to pay. And eventually, whoever loses the case, you compensate the other. But there are some instances where a cooperative is very unable, it's unable to pay. And eventually, they are just there stuck. Now, viewers, if you are a cooperative and you have a dispute, apart from a loan default has been removed for SACCOs, but previously it was also there. It was removed with the enactment of the 2016 Tier 4 Microfinance and Institutions and Money Lenders Act. So now, but the rest, all other disputes, if they are there, please don't go to court. There is a precedence by Honorable Andrew Basheija 2010. There is even the law, Section 73. Read the Cooperative Societies Act as amended. It is very clear on how disputes in the cooperatives are supposed to be handled. So there is a need for money. There is also a need for research and development. You have been asking me, but I don't have data. Can you imagine? But now when you go to like these commercial banks, they have information because there is a department in Bank of Uganda for research and development. So we need also to invest in research and development. Like now, how much do these cooperatives contribute to GDP? I may not authoritatively give you the right answer. Why? We lack data. So for us to get this data, now it would be helping government. Today in planning, you say we are putting this money in cooperatives because they are contributing a certain percentage to our GDP. They are contributing a lot towards exports. I will tell you like one cooperative, Ankole Coffee Producers Cooperative Union, exports over 200 containers of coffee every year. That is a lot of money to Europe. So, but do we have enough data? Can you quantify this? Do you know how much this cooperative is contributing to GDP? So here, this is an area where we need money. There is also a need for infrastructure, digitization. Can we create like a data center whereby you can easily monitor how these cooperatives, because you see cooperatives have now become very strong. You know we have SACCOs that are bigger than banks.
Yes.
Wazalendo is bigger than a commercial bank.
Exodus would also have been,
yes,
I think, had some challenges.
Exodus is also moving very fast. The parliamentarian SACCO is very big. Accountants of recent, I was looking at the accounts, billions of money. And others, there are so many very big institutions. So how do you ensure that you build the database so that you can monitor, see the trends, see what is happening? Because if we don't do this, we risk having a problem in case something affects the cooperative movement. You see, you can easily monitor very well in this era of digitization where you can create a center and then you are able to see. Like the banks are doing with Credit Reference Bureau. You know, in a bank now, if I have, let's say, a loan with one bank, I cannot go to get another loan. Immediately they will see, because they have the Credit Reference Bureau. They will see that, Ivan has defaulted in this bank, so we cannot give him a loan. But do you know now today, you can default in a SACCO in a Guru. You go and open another account in a SACCO here at UBC, then you go and open another one at UCA, then you go to Kabale, then you go here, and eventually you default in all. I will give you a scenario. When I was a general manager of a SACCO, we had a scenario where one individual defaulted in 17 institutions. 17. He goes here, gets a loan. He goes the other side, this is an angel. They gave him a loan. The wife goes this side, the son, the daughter. When we searched together, now when we went into real recovery, that is when we discovered that actually even the security this man had given us had been given to other institutions, including banks and SACCOs. So we are all looking at one piece of land which was worth around 5 million, yet if you were to sum up everything, the money was indebted up to around 150 million. So the man, what did he do? He had to vanish with his family, and we started scrambling for a piece of land. So had we had that data center, whereby if any circle is to give a loan, they check in the system, and they are able to track and say, Ivan Asim has a loan in Lyamujugu, so Ruchiga we can't give. He has a loan in Koboko United, so Agaro Sako cannot give. So this is where we are telling government, yes, thank you so much for really capitalizing these cooperatives, compensating them, supporting PDM, Emyoga, and the others, but this is not enough. If we want really efficiency and effectiveness, then we need to invest a lot of money in order to expect a lot of returns in the future.
Well, I'm still with Ivan Asimwe, the General Secretary, Uganda Cooperative Alliance, and he's justifying reasons why government in the financial year 2024-2025, more funds should be put in the cooperative sector. Many today we talk about circles, and when we talk about circles, we're not meaning just a circle. We are talking about credit and savings. This is where he's saying more money must be put. Now, Ivan, you've given us all justifications, but one would wonder, when we talk about cooperatives in Uganda, there is still lack of sufficient education.
True.
There is still a high level of mismanagement of funds. Now, should government continue amidst these challenges to add money to such a sector?
Thank you so much. You know, moderator, when you talk about embezzlement and mismanagement of funds in this country, it depends on which direction you are facing. Yes, it depends on which...
stolen is money stolen.
I'm telling you, when you look at cooperatives, you may say, there is a problem there. You focus on the other one and you see, but this one is worse. Then you check on the other, then it is worse. Why? There is a high level of corruption in the country. That one you can't rule it out. However, we don't want to use it as a cover. And that is why we are saying, government, thank you for putting money there in the cooperatives. But how do you safeguard this money? This is why you need to support audit and supervision to make sure that there is a team on the ground that is really seeing government has put money in ABC parish, 100 million. Has this money reached the beneficiaries? Are the beneficiaries really using this money effectively? This is what we are saying. Empower the commercial officers. These are our foot soldiers on the ground. Every district, city and municipality, they are there. They are doing work every day, Monday to Monday. They are there doing the work, supervising, auditing, training these cooperatives. But one, they need capacity. They need training, like you have mentioned. Not every commercial officer in the country studied cooperatives. So they need training. We did that last year. We sat with them across the country, and through their testimonies, you really find that majority of them who have been recruited of recent did not undergo cooperative education. As it used to be in the past, in the past, it was a policy that whoever is to work in a cooperative, you have to undergo a cooperative college course in Chigumba. It was a policy. But now it changed. Now you find a social scientist, an agriculturist is a commercial officer.
Let me look at some of the questions coming in. Please share your views with us on that topic. Where is government input in circles? Someone is asking. Circles are primary societies. Cooperatives are territorial after secondary amalgamation. Calling circles cooperatives is myopism. Cooperatives run their financial activities under a cooperative bank. You killed our own cooperative bank. How do you survive over poverty without a cooperative bank that is supposed to render the noble cause of furthering finances of circles?
Thank you so much. I want to thank the viewer and also want to thank him for his comment. However, I need to educate him. A SACCO is a savings and credit cooperative organization. It is a type of cooperative that provides financial services. So it is a financial cooperative. So Sebo, whether it is Sir or Madam, a SACCO is a cooperative, and we cannot get it out of the cooperative arena. It's a type of cooperatives. We have different types of cooperatives in this country. We have savings and credit, those are financial cooperatives, agricultural production and marketing, energy, transport, housing, health, there are so many. So a SACCO is part of the cooperative fraternity. Now, talking about the cooperative bank, I'm also happy to inform the viewers that we are in high gear of establishing the National Cooperative Bank. Now, and I want really to tell the viewers, let us, you know what is holding us back is this business of lamentation. You lament, you start lamenting, you end lamenting. We can never proceed. If you lose a relative, then bury, forget, and proceed. That is why even in the Bible, there is a book of Lamentations, the book of Revelation. Are you a Christian? The book of Revelation and the book of what? Acts. Now I've got you. Now the book of Acts. So, listeners and viewers, let us stop lamenting. If the bank died, it was closed because of reasons which we explained. I remember I was here explaining.
Very well.
Very well. And even the literature is there. You can read. Now that we are also happy with the government, because the government, I think, beginning of this year, our Honorable Minister of Trade, Industry and Cooperatives launched a 14-man committee of reestablishing the cooperative bank, which is chaired by Uganda Cooperative Alliance, myself as a General Secretary. I'm chairing that committee. We have done consultations, we are doing research, we are now coming down. So, cooperator, wherever you are, we shall find you there to consult you, because ideally, and he has a point, ideally, if you are to really bring all the wealth and consolidate it together, especially from SACCOs, then you need to have a cooperative bank at the center. And this is now where we are heading. So I'm also grateful to government for the initiative and for the support. But again, in fact, I had forgotten, in this budget, I would also be happy to see government supporting the cooperative bank establishment, putting in some money. We can agree, like it happened in Kenya, because moderator starting a bank requires a lot of money.
Definitely.
Yes, it is a lot of money. Like now, the minimum capital requirement is 150 billion. So government can actually, in a way, to support us, the way you are supporting PDMs, we can actually agree the government puts in a certain percentage to support the establishment, like it happened in Kenya, then it starts withdrawing gradually, and up to until the time when the cooperators are strong enough to have their bank up and running.
Well, more messages are coming in, but time is just out. They're thanking you, saying you've represented them very well. And one says, we hope the budget does factor in that. Now we have to message who says, Ivan, don't you think you came in a little bit late? Let's end with that one.
No. You see, better late than never. And this is the budgeting period. Because we all know that by 31st of May, yes, that's when the Parliament will pass it, and then it will be presented in June. So, cooperators, viewers, listeners, this is the right time. We have come at the right time. And I want to thank UBC. Surely God should bless you. You have given the cooperators the opportunity to come and express. You know, we used it to be below the table. Nobody could even talk about cooperatives. Whenever you talked about cooperatives, especially to the educated, these capitalists, for them they will say, but what are you saying? Cooperatives, those ones died. But now when you talk about cooperatives, the other day I was giving a lecture to professors and doctors, and everybody was saying, yes, this is the way to go. So it is UBC that has given us the opportunity. Please, cooperators, wherever you are, join me, and we appreciate UBC. This is the right forum that we can use to reach out to many. You know, the viewership of UBC is wide. So that's why cooperators, we use this one to make sure that we really discuss issues of national importance. And the government, let us work together to economically and socially transform this country. I am glad with His Excellency. Whenever he's talking, he says, how can we socially and economically transform this economy? Your Excellency, I have the medicine. The medicine is the cooperative model. I can give you one example. Why would Ugandans export coffee? Just coffee. You export it at very little money. You give a farmer less than 10,000 shillings per kilo. My coffee goes to Switzerland and it is processed into Nescafe. Nescafe comes back here and I buy it at 180,000. Why? The man is making money in Europe, but an African is becoming poor and poorer. So the medicine is, and I strongly support the government when it says, let the coffee be processed here. Instead of exporting raw coffee, we would also export a finished product and we are able to make money. Talk about milk, the same. Talk about bananas. You know, so everything. So Uganda is a gifted country. It is a part of Africa. We have all it takes. Your Excellency and the government in general, let's join hands. Let's work as a team to socially and economically transform this country. I thank you.
Well, thank you so much for your time, and of course our viewers, we hope and pray that the cry for cooperatives for more funding in the financial year 2024-2025 sees the light of day, and this model is used to transform our country. Have a lovely day. See you in the next hour. Good morning.
Live from UPC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
Nyati Motion Pictures brings you Tuko Pamoja, a documentary film about our unity as Ugandans and Africans.
Bunyoro would have simply created an East African community that we are looking for today.
The rulers of Bunyoro are actually Luos.
We people who live across the Nile, we are so related from our myth or from just the Nile.
We are the same people, and genetically we are even the same people.
We are similar people.
We are one.
Pamoja, we are one.
Use that word, pamoja.
Premiering every week from 3rd February to June 2024 at the National Theatre and Indere Center. Daily screenings are from 4th February to June 2024 at Ham Cinemax and the National Theatre. To get a ticket, call 0778 787 660. Tuko Pamoja?
Juko. Yo. Check the shopping, man. What's your secret?
Haven't you heard of the parish development model, PDM?
Yes, I did, but I thought it was just a talk.
No, Sebatia. It is real. I and a few friends together formed a circle, accessed money from the PDM, invested in a portrait project, and now things are moving.
Juko. I thought I was one of your friends.
You are.
But you left me behind.
I didn't leave you in poverty. What you do, just visit your LC2 chairperson and your parish chief and start the process of economic transformation. Just like that. The parish development model is an initiative from the government of Uganda through the Ministry of Local Government designed to transform all lives of Ugandans for the better. PDM, my parish, my development, my life.
Mukoke Fish Farmers Association tuli balunzi ba byananda ebyebika ebisatu omuli Miracap, tilapia oba engege ni catfish trade y'abana Uganda.
Live from UPC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
A big question. Some roads that they have tried to do some repairs. Also, again, in Sorry State, I'll give a road like Martin Road, Old Kampala. When you go there, it was worked upon, but now you find it very hard.
And well, of course, when you move around industrial area, you get to realize that most of the roads are still in a sober state. There are lots of potholes there. And on a day like this one, where it has actually rained very early in the morning, you will realize that it's going to be a difficult way to move in. But also, over the weekend, you get to realize that businessman Matthew Kanyamunyu was also released after completing a sentence for the 2016 shooting and of death of human rights activist, that is Kena. And when you look at his release, that is Matthew Kanyamunyu, many of the activists were not happy with the fact that he was released. Gerald, just a comment on that before I get to Chantal.
Well, first, Matthew Kanyamunyu was released after serving a sentence. Matthew Kanyamunyu went through the proper, and I must say proper, judicial process of our country. He was on remand for about 11 months. Then he was sentenced. Matthew Kanyamunyu showed a remorse, and I think this is what many Ugandans are not understanding, that a sentence, the judge depends on so many things too. One, much as he shot and he pleaded guilty, Matthew Kanyamunyu rushed Akena to a hospital facility. Second, during this process, he showed remorse by even going through the traditional justice of the people of that ground known as Matoput. So he was given a lenient sentence depending on these categories that I've mentioned. One, they'll look at intention. You have malice at forethought to commit a felony or to commit that offense. The fact is he didn't have malice at forethought because it wasn't something he planned to kill, like those that killed the Andiga clan leader. Then second, were you remorseful? Yes, you were remorseful, even wanted to make ends meet and go for Matoput. So the sentencing is not just what a layman thinks, that the judge just wakes up and says, life imprisonment. There are terms that they followed, he served his sentence, and now he's out. Same as Chandi Jamwa. He also came out, I was watching a video of him some time back. But someone would say now that one got a presidential pardon. But law is complicated. That's what we must say. So you must understand the nitty-gritties of why they arrive at a particular sentence.
All right. And now let's check on the lady on the team this morning, Chantal Olive Akandinda. Good morning, Chantal.
Good morning, Sanko. How are you? It must be colder in the Arsenal camp.
It is very cold. It is very cold in the Arsenal camp, and that has been one of... you really caught me off guard with that.
I know.
How was your weekend?
Well, I had a restful weekend. It was a really good one. And with the rains also during the weekend, it was indeed a good one. And though the news that, you know, has been circulating through the weekend has been news to look out for, and bring up a few questions as well when you're talking about Matthew Kanyamunyu. Robert, I agree with what you've said. However, please do note there was a stretch in between where we did not know whether he was remorseful or not. By the time he got to go to the clan leaders and the clan heads to show remorse and everything, we had gone through a little bit of back and forth on whether he's the one who had murdered him or not. So maybe that could be some of the sentiments that have led to some people feel like he shouldn't have left. But then again, they should have protested the sentence back then instead of protesting the fact that he has been released after serving the sentence that he was that he was given by the jury. So at the end of the day, I think people need to understand that this is not the time to go out now and start expressing concern over his release. And then when we talk about Iran and Israel, it's been a long time coming, that is one, but then Israel has been ready because most of the missiles that were sent were countered, and it turns out Iran lost more than Israel. Because according to Israel, only a 7-year-old was hit and just one military base. And then Iran seemed to have lost 7 Iranian military officials, and of those, there are also 2 generals. So I guess they were not as prepared, or they didn't think Israel was as prepared as they thought.
Well, now that aside, we've gathered for you some news both from the local and international scene, but we kick it off with the local scene.
And on the local scene, we begin with President Yoweri Museveni, who has cautioned people frustrating Attack Sugar Factory project in Amur district that those frustrating the project are opposing industrialization and are enemies of Uganda and Africa. Museveni was at a field visit to assess the state of the multi-billion shilling sugar project implementation under a public-private partnership. President Museveni said any person who is against urbanization through industrialization is an enemy of Uganda. He was touring a royal investment holding company in Game Pasilo village, Atiak sub-county, Amur district. President Museveni lashed at people disagreeing over the land being used by Atiak Sugar Factory for being opportunists with the aim of dividing the people virtually. Atiak Sugar Factory is owned by businessman Dr. Amina Harris Mego. The project assessment visit was also attended by ministers, members of parliament, and local leaders. The first commercial sugar production is slated in mid-2025 and will be a growth stimuli to the sub-region. President Museveni promised to reward the family of the late John Omanya for giving 25,000 acres of land to Dr. Amina to set up the factory. And moving on, President Museveni has advised religious leaders and followers to emulate Jesus Christ, who besides performing spiritual miracles, he also worked with his father Joseph. The message was contained in a speech read by him by the Vice President, retired Major Jessica Alupo during Busoga Diocese at St. Mary's Day at St. James Church in Jinja City. Mr. Museveni commended religious leaders in Busoga for partnering with government to eliminate poverty by increasing household income. He said poverty in Uganda rises from the fact that 38% of the households are still engaged in subsistence farming. President Museveni contributed 50 million in cash towards the construction of St. Henry's House. The celebration began with a church service led by retired Reverend Paul Nayemyenye, the Bishop of Busoga Diocese. Still on local news, the Archbishop of Kampala, His Grace Paul Semogere, has urged the daughters of St. Paul's to use the media to bring hope to the wounded world. He said the world is overwhelmed by social media, which has become a tool of disinformation. He was presiding over the final profession of Sir Florence Lamero among the daughters of St. Paul at the King's Church in Kampala. It was a moment of joy at Christ the King's Church, Kampala, as Sir Florence marched to commit herself for life in evangelical ministry. During the homily, the Archbishop Semogere praised the daughters of St. Paul of taking the word of God to remote areas that Christ meant. The Superior General, Sister Anne Kasiza, in her letter, reminded Sister Florence that when there are things in us that prevent us from being completely of God, we have to be like the lungs that ensure they release bad breath and bring in new oxygen. The Provincial Superior, Sister Rose Muweni Mwawa, urged Sister Florence to preserve herself for God and ensure that she inspires others. And finally, from the local scene, the Julius Nyerere Leadership Center has unveiled a new curriculum as part of celebrating 102 years of Julius Nyerere as at Makerere University. The Swahili-based curriculum book will see students enlightened about Nyerere's legacy and ideology. The Julius Nyerere Leadership Center at Makerere University has marked 102 years of former Tanzanian President Mwalimu Julius Nyerere. Professor Tasis Kabwejire hailed Nyerere as a revolutionary leader who contributed to the liberation of Uganda and Africa to fight colonialists. During the celebrations, Swahili curriculum book was launched to facilitate students learn about Mwalimu's legacy. The Tanzanian ambassador to Uganda, Major General Pauli Kisesa Simuli, challenged the youth to take lead in championing Pan-Africanism and liberation of the mind. Every year, Makerere University honors Nyerere as one of its outstanding alumni, first black vice-chancellor when Makerere University was still part of the East African University.
And well, of course, that aside from our local scene, we now check in to see what is making headlines from the international scene.
Well, internationally, the White House has warned Israel that the U.S. will not participate in any retaliatory strikes on Iran, senior administration officials have said. Over 300 drones and missiles were fired at Israel overnight, which Iran said was in response to a 1st April strike on its consulate in Syria. Almost all weapons were shot down by Israel, U.S. and allied forces before they reached their targets. Officials say Joe Biden urged Israel to consider its response carefully. Speaking to reporters on Sunday, a senior administration office said that Mr. Biden told the Israeli Prime Minister to think very carefully and strategically about how his forces replied to the unprecedented action, the first direct attack by Iran on the country. Away from that, at least 33 people have been killed over 3 days of heavy rains and flash flooding in Afghanistan, according to the government's disaster management department. From Friday onwards, because of the rains, there were flash floods which caused high human and financial losses, department spokesman Janan Sayek said on Sunday. The primary information shows that unfortunately in the floods, 33 people were martyred and 27 people got injured. Most casualties were from roof collapses as some 600 houses were damaged and destroyed. In addition, 200 livestock have perished, nearly 600 kilometers of road have been destroyed, and 800 hectares of agricultural land has flooded away, the spokesman added. 20 of the nation's 34 provinces were lashed by the heavy rains, which followed an unusually dry winter season that has parched terrain and forced farmers to delay planting. Western Farah, Herat, Southern Zabul, and Kandahar are among the provinces that suffered the most damage, Sayek said. And lastly, on the international scene, one of Nigeria's most popular celebrities, a transgender woman known as Bobrisky, has been sentenced to 6 months in jail for spraying Naira notes at a film premiere. The judge said Bobrisky must serve her sentence in a male prison. She has not been given the option of paying a fine. Instead, local media reports. Throwing